All right. Good evening and good night, and welcome to the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. It is Thursday, May 21st, 2015. My name is David, a.k.a. Kimba, a.k.a. Christian Longside.
Soup.
Yeah, Soup, we're back again.
Yes, sir.
Blazing up the trail here with the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until. Give us a call tonight. Our number is 340-201-9005. You can also text us on that number as well. So most importantly, man, you got to go to our website, streaminglivefromthevi.com. Streaminglivefromthevi.com, all one word. Go on that website, click on the link that says Watch Us Live, man. And guess what, man? You're going to see us live tonight. Tonight, we do have a special guest in the studio again. He's back again. Author Gary James, there he is right there. Wave to the crowd, you're streaming out right now. He's back again.
Live and direct.
Yeah, man. So we're going to get with him just in a few minutes here, but I just got to let everybody know that we are streaming live from the high-tech, low-tech studio here in the beautiful island of St. Croix, Virgin Islands. No radio, no TV, internet only. We do not have a radio frequency. We're not an innovative cable. But you got to get online. Hopefully you can get online via your smartphone, your iPad, your browser, whether it be Mac or Windows. Just search for streaming live from the vi.com, and you'll see the show tonight. We do have all our recorded live shows. Soup, man, this number is getting bigger and bigger every day. I think now with yesterday's show, it's 182 live recorded shows that we have on YouTube.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, we were just blazing it up, I mean, damn. So, and then we also have some shows on YouTube, on Ustream.tv. If you go on Ustream.tv, also search for our channel. It's Your Perspective Talk Show. We got like 10, 12 videos there, but most of them are on YouTube. Check that out there. We have two Facebook pages, It's Your Perspective Talk Show, and a Facebook page for the website, streaming live from the vi.com. Definitely want to give a shout out to CHS class of 1982. That's the class that Soup and I are representing. Big ups to that entire crew, wherever you are. Hit us up. Let us know how you're doing. If you're here in St. Croix, worldwide, just hit us up. Let us know how you're doing. Big ups to Vanessa of iGrade Records and Rhythms. And also Julie and Sharice King. Thanks for coming out and helping us with the show in the past. We definitely want you guys to come back. And to all our guests, thank you so much as well. You can hit us up on Twitter at VI Perspective. Tweet with us. And we're moving straight forward and up, Soup. That's the only way we know how to go.
Yes, sir.
And this show's mission is just simply to inform, entertain, and empower everyone. And as always, Soup blesses us with the It's Your Perspective poem. Soup, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Bless that mic, man.
Greetings in the name of Kidamawa in Paradise Selassie the First. Jah Rastafari. The greatest secret in life is that reality is nothing more than illusion. The physical world does not exist outside of our own belief system and the filter of our own mind. We are, in fact, subparticles of Jah experiencing creation itself. But as our subparticles of Jah, we also have swayed over these creations. Everything you have experienced in life, every event, occurrence, object, and person is nothing more than a figment of your own thoughts, beliefs, and words. The problem is, most of us are still asleep. The problem is, most of us are still asleep. When you understand this, your entire world shifts and you come to realize the true meaning of life is tossed like a lucid dream. We have total control.
Yes, sir, Soup. Thank you so much, man. Been blessing since April of 2014. Been blessing us with the It's Your Perspective poem. And so moving on here, I just actually want to give a shout out to our guest last night, Tish. Tish has a couple new R&B songs that are out. She's a local St. Croix artist. Big ups to her and her manager, D Nice. They were both in the studio last night. I Am a Leader, and there's another song there. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's a real nice up-tempo.
It's Too Late.
It's Too Late. That's it. It's Too Late. Nice up-tempo club song that Should be dropping on the charts any day now.
Yes, sir.
But one of the things I mentioned earlier, Soup, was that we definitely want to give a special shout out to all our guests. The show is obviously based on guests. But our guest tonight was our first guest in April of 2014, and he's back here again. Author Gary James, there he is right there.
Big up to Wasi for standing in.
That's right.
First night.
Yes, Wasai was here last night. Big ups to him. Hopefully he's tuning in. He'll be helping out here in the next couple of weeks for a couple of weeks as well. Big ups to Wasi, man. Gary, welcome back. Thanks for coming in again.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure, my brother.
Yes, I.
And so Gary's here, Black Politics 2.0. His conversation continues, part 12.
That's right.
And you're back?
I'm back. This is the 12th edition. And we're going to talk tonight about the political dimension, a topic that has pretty much fascinated the human imagination throughout history. But 21st century domestic, national, and geopolitical politics particularly is interesting and engaging and inspiring. However, we're going to segue into our political conversation after briefly revisiting our last conversation. We, you may recall, introduced an Ethiopian monastery database for public consumption and participation during our last conversation, balbazarmonastery.com. And I referenced the monastery database because the information provides some historical context and perspective regarding unfolding events in the Middle East, East, North, and West African countries by the so-called Islamic State. These unfolding events are complex and multidimensional, but are perceived by many as juxtaposition between Christians and Muslims. In some quarters, the conflagration in the Middle East is prophetic in terms like end of days eschatology and apocalypse and the day of the Lord are examples. Although there's a dynamic secular geopolitical dimension to these military and wartime activities, the popular narrative is that religion is at the base of the crisis. But we refute that. And we totally refute the erroneous assertion that the crisis is based on an ancient Christian and Muslim animus. The Middle East, though, in fact represents the center of what many believe is an escalating world conflagration, and some refer to the popular name Armageddon. But we know the Middle East is the birthplace of Prophet Abraham and the three religions attributed to him: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And the birthplace of Abraham, or UR, is located in present-day Iraq, formerly known as Mesopotamia, and is currently the primary theater of the unfolding conflagration. It's a foregone conclusion that in some quarters, we are witnessing a meltdown of the country's borders established following World War I by the British and French. And Iraq may in fact be the first domino. The United States and Western powers are waging a war for the purpose of keeping Iraq unified with its corresponding borders in place. However, at the end of the day, Iraq will most likely be divided between Kurds, Shia, and Sunni. Hence, the economic and political strategic advantage that the United States and the West have enjoyed in the region is in decline, and relations are currently being repositioned underneath all of this other stuff. A reposition of regional relationships, regional relations, will no doubt negatively impact the maritime hegemony that the West enjoys in terms of international commerce and trade prior to the emergence of these impactful indigenous peoples' resistance movements. We mentioned the impending reconstruction of Iraq currently underway, as it may in fact be a metaphor for events that have the potential to impact world events, other larger world events. The Middle East, as we know it, is the geopolitical design of the French and British, who formulated the respective countries' regional boundaries following World War II, based on their economic and political interests. The indigenous challenges of the peoples in the region to the political and economic status quo will remain the forefront of international news for the foreseeable future. We will have topical conversations going forward, and we will emphasize the secular nature of the crisis in the Middle East and attribute it to geopolitical, economic, and strategic interests of the U.S. and the Western powers, as opposed to relying on the convenient analysis that we have a religious war underway. So going forward, we'll refer or offer historical context and perspective to help generate clarity and comparative information. So stay tuned and pay close attention. But in addition to the ongoing saga in the Middle East, Africa is on a similar trajectory in countries of the North, East, and West, as indigenous populations in that region are challenging the design of the African continent. You might know that the various countries of Africa and their respective boundaries resulted from the Berlin Conference in 1884. Accordingly, the former European colonial powers conspired and undertook what's called historically as the Scramble for Africa, which occurred in 1874 after the abolition of slavery. This resulted in the wholesale partitioning of Africa into 50-odd countries, which with arbitrary borders. Accordingly, the new control matrix overlaid over Africa put the European colonial masters, or former European colonial masters, in direct control of Africa and its manifold resources. So we're currently seeing the crisis in the Middle East expanding to parts of Africa with utter brutality and barbarity. Consequently, Africa will likely be the next domino to fall in this conflagration, as the political and economic status quo under the stewardship of the Western world continues to be challenged. But while these global events are essentially driven by economic, political, and strategic interests of Western secular powers, public and private, the conventional narrative propounded by media, the ruling class, and others characterize the escalating global conflagration as a war between Islam against the West, and a war between Christianity and Islam and other politically convenient hurdles. The unfolding crisis in the Middle East has a greater political and economic component at its base, and the religious dimension is only a convenient excuse that drives human emotions and enables others, the visible and invisible government, to do what they want under the confusion. The religious dimension in the Middle East is based on the Sunni versus Shia Islam dynamic, and the resolution of that crisis requires an Islamic reformation, and that is completely out of the control of the Western powers, Christianity, and every other entity beyond Islam. So we'll leave that there, and we'll segue to our conversation on community and electoral politics at this point, and remind you that we will have further conversations on this religious and political conflagration going forward, based upon the database that is contained within the monastery website and current events as they emerge, and we engage them for the purpose of a comparative narrative, clarity, and edification. But tonight's conversation deals with conventional and electoral politics, which is a subject that we need to pay close attention to. The conversation is a preview and introduction to our political initiative. During the next conversation, which will be our 13th appearance on It's Your Perspective talk show, we'll introduce the Political Information Clearinghouse. Political Information Clearinghouse, PIC. PIC is the acronym, which will take the form of a website that focuses on improving and advancing the quality of America's community and electoral politics in general. The target demonstration area of the PIC initiative is New York City and the Virgin Islands. The VI and the United States have an historic relationship that dates from March 31st, 1917, when America purchased the Virgin Islands, formerly known as the Danish West Indies, from Denmark. A great migration occurred following that purchase during the 1920s, in fact, and New York City was the primary destination. Many Virgin Islanders contributed to advancing the politics, art, culture, literature, entertainment, etc., and the contributions of many Virgin Islands to the storied Harlem Renaissance are no more or no less than legendary. But the current political status of African American politics in New York City and the Virgin Islands are both intriguing and interesting going forward in our observation. There are noteworthy political similarities in the VI and New York, despite the fact that the history of African Americans from emancipation to freedom on mainland America is utterly different from the history of African Americans in the Virgin Islands from emancipation to freedom. But moreover, the history of former enslaved Africans in the Virgin Islands has a colorful history of being a colony under 7 different European colonial masters, with the United States being the last colonial master. The VI is currently a colonial possession of the United States, is an unincorporated territory under the administration of the United States Congress and the Department of Interior. Yet, despite the vast, historically different colonial experiences between mainland African Americans and their VI counterparts, the political and economic state of each respective community, including the political leadership, elected and unelected, and the political disposition of the citizens and electorate, or voters, all are stunningly similar, despite the historical differences. The similarities between the two communities is paradoxical and perplexing, particularly in view of the obvious fact that Black Americans on the mainland are a political minority consisting of 14 to 17% of the population, while Black Americans in the VI comprise the overwhelming majority, which may be 90% of the population. Interestingly enough, community residents in the VI and New York City live in a similar economic, political, and social circumstance, and the respective communities seem to have no foreseeable horizon of hope. The PC initiative is tailored to the challenges peculiar to New York City community, and a corresponding initiative tailored to the challenges associated with the Virgin Islands community, moving that community or both communities forward in terms of community politics and electoral politics. So that is the essential focus of the PIC initiative, which we will introduce next time. The fact that both communities have the same political parties, Democrat, Republican, and others, and operate under the same federal law renders the project an organic political exercise. While we will introduce the PIC website next time during our 13th airing of its Your Perspective talk show, we'll make it accessible to the public while it is in the process of development. The initiative will officially be launched during the second week of January 2016. As we project, the final product will be available at that time. Apart from the time it will take to complete the content of the site, we wanted to kick off the project in early 2016 because there is a Virgin Islands senatorial election in November of this year or of next year. And November of next year on the mainland, as we all know, is a presidential election. Consequently, November of 2016 we see as a propitious time to launch the Virgin Islands and New York City PIC initiative. In both instances, the VI and New York City community organizing is a priority area, moving the community from point A to point B. Community organizing. We're going to deal with that. The general feature of community organizing is an important subject that has a basic learning curve that should be approached, understood, and applied. But there's a distinction that must be appreciated when dealing with community organizing as compared to political party or political club organizing. Generally speaking, community organizing is essentially not a political partisan exercise. Community organizing focuses on the electoral process as a whole in the context of how the elective process can move the various interests of the community forward. On the other hand, political party organizing is partisan. It's a partisan exercise and is focused on strengthening and or being a controlling factor in the particular political party. Appreciating these distinctions between community organizing and political party organizing and applying the nuanced distinctions is critical to effectively organizing the community on the one hand and effectively organizing the political party on the other hand. If the appropriate distinctions are not observed and applied, the political party process will continue to be dysfunctional in service only to a prevailing political cabal. That's what we have in the VI generally. That's what we have in New York's black community in particular, and across the country. It's a political cabal that are in control of community politics. Although the VI elected officials are in fact guilty of poor leadership, and some others are alleged to have committed high crimes and felonies, at the end of the day, it is the people who have ultimate responsibility for corrective action, for ameliorating the situation. The people. The PIC initiative is formulated with the purpose of taking corrective action, affirmative action in quotes, but we define affirmative action as first person singular, meaning you must do some stuff. That's affirmative action. That's personal affirmative action, and that's where affirmative action must begin. It begins with the individual and spreads through the community through organizing. We intend to help the people in those target areas to claim the 21st century on behalf of informed and responsible citizenship. Therefore, the initiative will emphasize the how-to aspects of community, political empowerment, and accountability. We won't shy away from critique, constructive criticism, and the what to do, in addition to the how to do. But our aim is the how to. It's about making some stuff happen. So what I want to do now is just give a general overview of the political parties as we know them. The Democrat and Republican Party. A brief historical overview of the development of the parties that we deal with. Following emancipation from slavery in the 19th century, the Republican Party was the first and most popular among the African American community. This was due in large part to the fact that the Republican Party, founded in 1854, was established as a political party that advocated the abolition of the enslavement of Africans. It was an abolitionist party at its founding. President Abraham Lincoln, the most prominent Republican Party member of the time, is an iconic figure, along with Republican Party activist Frederick Douglass. They were both archetypes that animated the Black American community. This period, also known as Reconstruction, heralded unprecedented political and economic advances of the black community at large that remain legendary compared to the modern civil rights movement, which we all, or most of us, have experienced. But the period of Reconstruction, which included the imposition of federal troops in target states in order to enforce African American civil rights as per the Emancipation Proclamation. That's what it said, and that's what it did. But the imposition of federal troops was short-lived. The political deal that settled the election of 1876, because that's when the conflict occurred. There was an election for president in 1876 that developed into a tie. We all are familiar with the 2000 election between Bush and Gore. But in 1876, there was a tie in the election, and the result of that tie is known in history as the Great Compromise. And the Great Compromise ended Reconstruction by way of removing the federal troops that protected the rights of the black American community. So what was the basis of the compromise? The Democrat and Republican were tied. The Republican candidate was Rutherford Hayes. The Democrats gave Rutherford Hayes an offer he couldn't refuse. You can be president. We will agree to you being the Republican president, but your mandate is to remove the federal troops that are protecting the folks they call the N-word, the niggers. And that great compromise is what went down. The Republicans got the presidential election, and the federal troops were withdrawn, and that was the beginning of Jim Crow. The presidential election of 1876 was essentially a tie between the Democrat and Republican candidates, and the resolution of the tie became a political compromise of great controversy. These details are not readily spoken of, but we need to understand this in order to appropriately move forward and generate the kind of accountability and political leverage that we, as a viable and one of the oldest, or the oldest, quote-unquote minority community in America. So at the end of the day, the compromise included the ascension of Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican, to the presidency. But Hayes was required to call back the federal troops protecting the rights of black folks. With the end of Reconstruction, Jim Crow policies and procedures characterized by extrajudicial killings, lynching, bigotry, racism, and terrorism was visited on the African American community until the advent of the modern civil rights movement. The modern civil rights movement begins with the political maturity of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, whose mission was to end lynching, bigotry, and discrimination against African Americans by way of nonviolent and civil disobedience. While the earlier political and economic advancement of the African American community occurred in the political framework of the Republican Party, the modern civil rights movement was a political phenomenon that essentially occurred within the Democratic political party. Let me just briefly mention something here, because I said Martin Luther King was really an iconic figure in terms of the modern civil rights movement. But what is not generally discussed or known about Martin Luther King is that Martin Luther King was a Republican at that time. Martin Luther King's father was a Republican. And Martin Luther King Jr. became a Democrat following his success during the modern civil rights movement and the enactment of the civil rights and voting rights legislation signed by President Lyndon Johnson. So that's just a little aside that we need to just digest in terms of how we evaluate the history of our participation in electoral politics. But going further, the 20 years between 1960 and 1980 was the most dynamic period in the United States in general, and it was a particularly energetic, creative, and culturally and politically conscious period with the African American youth and young adults. The emerging activism and consciousness in the black community collided with white liberal democratic political forces who were wrestling for control of the national, Democratic Party narrative from the conservative wing of the Democratic Party. Ultimately, an informal political coalition emerged between the black community as they engaged in various endeavors, and white liberal political movement expertise helped train black folk to political activism. That consciousness was channeled by white liberal Democrats, and we, or the emergent black consciousness, was instructed by the democratic liberal forces. Just as 100 years earlier it was liberal Republican forces. So now, the emergent activism and consciousness collided with white liberal democratic forces who were wrestling for control of the national party narrative from the conservative wing of the Democratic Party. They controlled the party. They were they ran the Ku Klux Klan and all them other dudes. Ultimately, an informal coalition emerged between the black community as they engaged in various political endeavors and white liberal political movement expertise. However, The backdrop of this political coalition of convenience between black and white liberal political operatives dealt with a much larger geopolitical scenario. Apart from the respective parochial political objectives of the black political leadership and their white liberal counterparts, the larger geopolitical scenario of communism versus capitalism, that political paradigm was pernicious and militant and revolutionary black and white folk were in some cases killed by COINTELPRO or other covert operations within the political or invisible political milieu. Because apart from what the black consciousness movement was about, the white liberal movement had problems with the larger white society because they were advocating Marxism, communism, and these ideologies trickled down to black folk. And because those ideologies are against the primary objective of those who control America and the West, many black and white militant and revolutionaries are no longer with us. Nevertheless, the convenient political coalition between the black community and the white liberals were victorious in their effort to wrest control of the Democratic Party narrative from the conservative wing of the party. The victory of the liberal wing over the conservative wing of the Democratic Party was solidified in 1964 and 1965 with the passing of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights bills, respectively. Some of us are old enough to remember the words of President Lyndon Johnson lamenting when he signed one of the respective bills that the Democratic Party would lose the South as a result of this legislation. President Johnson's words were prophetic in that many former conservative Democrats migrated to the Republican Party, where they currently reside, with a more sophisticated social political agenda reminiscent of the days of old. That's what we have now. Now, 30-odd years subsequent to the heyday of the modern civil rights movement, some suggest that the civil rights movement is the only game in town relative to the black community moving forward. On the contrary, others offer a compelling argument that we are in a post-civil rights period. Therefore, the civil rights agenda is not relevant to the 21st century needs of the black community. While the latter argument may be persuasive, no other strategic, forward-moving political initiative has yet to emerge. The conventional black leadership, elected and unelected, celebrity leadership in entertainment and scholarship, etc., all use their respective platforms and celebrity to speak from their perch. But nothing moves beyond political correct or politically correct rhetoric or popular hype. Interestingly enough, there is little, if any, pertinent comments and ideas from organic representation of the grassroots black community. On the other hand, media juggernaut, or the media juggernaut, more often than not defines the political narrative in the framework of conventional political wisdom and the popular culture. Fortunately, advances in digital technology and the internet have facilitated a communication platform accessible at the grassroots level. Therefore, a broad range of ideas and concepts have free access to the marketplace of the public discourse. Thank you, my brothers.
Thank you.
It remains to be seen whether the civil rights agenda, such as it is, will be relevant to the political and economic needs of the black American community in the 21st century. Obviously, the civil rights leadership orthodoxy and black elected officials at the national level were inconsequential in the context of Senator Barack Obama's winning his party's nomination in 2008. Subsequent to his nomination victory, the black American leadership, elected and unelected, boarded the political train as it was now in motion. The national or the nomination election and re-election of President Barack Obama is a case in point regarding the relative political impotence of the conventional black political leadership going forward. Moreover, there is no discernible political and economic agenda or strategy being advanced or advocated by the civil rights leadership orthodoxy and black elected leadership. But while there is no coherent political economic strategy to positively impact the political facts on the ground in the black community, the civil rights leadership archetype remains the perceived go-to guys. How are we doing in time?
Say maybe another, 5-8 minutes or so.
Okay, we'll leave it there then, and just reiterate the point that we will discuss the initiative and make available the website of the PIC initiative during the next show. When is the next show, brother?
Next show is June 4th, 8
Okay.
p.m. That's a
We'll
Thursday.
be here June 4th. And I did mention community organizing and political party organizing and the distinction between the two. And on the site, we'll get into that further. But just to digress briefly, the President Barack Obama, during his candidacy for the Democratic nomination, was chided by Republicans and others for his role as a community organizer. President Barack Obama touted his role as a community organizer and community organizing as a significant piece. And he also mentioned that he was a student of the Saul Alinsky School of Organizing. And he was really routed for mentioning the name of Saul Alinsky. He was really routed by Republicans because Saul Alinsky was known in the leftist circles as a leftist, a very good organizer, but definitely a leftist with socialist and Marxist leanings. And I mention that because I'm familiar with the Saul Alinsky School of Organizing, because I'm a student of the Saul Alinsky School of Organizing, and I went through that training, so I know all about that. During the 60s, when I was a staff organizer for the National Welfare Rights Organization. And community organizing is a very important and critical part to politics and organizing and structuring in general. And it's unfortunate that emphasis has not been placed on community organizing, and it has been maligned so. And people tend to believe that they could just say that they are a community organizer or do some organizing for protests and marching and believe that they are doing some community organizing or political organizing. But that's not the deal. There is a science to community and political organizing, and there's an art to community and political organizing. And you need to know the science as well as the art so you could apply them appropriately and get maximum results from your political organizing. So we digressed on that briefly, but we will discuss that in more detail in terms of the how-to when we introduce on the 4th of June.
Yes.
The PIC, Political Information Clearinghouse. PIC. When we introduce the PIC initiative. And again, the PIC initiative is a website, a database that will be officially launched in January of 2016 in view of the elections in the VI and in the states. And so we will discuss that in greater detail, and we look forward to your participation next time. Look forward to that. Thank you again, my brothers. I love what you do, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Thank you, Gary. It's always a pleasure. You know what I mean? So you continue to do what you're doing, you know?
I can't help it, bro.
Yeah, yes, I.
The political piece is avocational, but the other stuff with the monastery, that's my day.
Yes, I.
So,
Yes, I.
so
We appreciate it.
So that's where I'm going to be.
Yes, I.
All right. Our guest tonight is author Gary James. I want to say thank you again for coming out today. He just finished part 12
Right.
of his conversation continues. And so you have 2 more or 3 more?
Two more,
Two more.
bro. Two more.
Okay, so
The 13 and 14,
okay,
and then I got to take some time off because I got to market my my book,
okay,
and I want to think about the next dispensation here with you guys,
okay,
which is why I've introduced the monastery website,
Site.
and this one coming up for next time.
yeah,
Okay.
Pick.
Right.
And there will be 2 more I will introduce. I'll mention it next time.
okay,
But the monastery and the pick are mentioned because they require a lot of
Work. Yes.
whereas the other 2 pieces don't require that much work. I'll just say, just for information's sake, the other 2 pieces, one is a blog
Okay.
that I write, which is it's an important concept. The name of it is soundmeal.com. And Sound Meal is expanding the sound bite culture.
okay,
You
okay,
see, we are used to sound bites,
Bites. Yes.
and sound bites cannot satisfy our intellectual appetite.
That's right.
And sound bites are half-baked information.
okay,
You see, so we need a full course meal.
That's right.
So we're dealing with a sound meal.
Meal. Sound meal. Yes.
And that is the blog, and the subject matter deals with substance
okay.
of whatever the topic is.
Topic is for the day, yeah.
And the other website is my consulting company. I have a consulting company that I've been running for many years.
Right.
In the States. I had a public relations and printing company in Harlem
Okay.
for 15 years. But since we relocated down here, the company, the consulting company is the JC Group, James Consulting.
Okay.
I'm not, there's no pun intended.
Yes.
The JC Group.
You Bryce.
But I don't have it, it's a corporation, but I don't have it registered here in the VI
Okay.
because I didn't intend to activate the company down here. I came down here to write, do some research on my family ancestry and some other stuff, and you guys got me engaged on this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I'm restructuring the consulting company, the JC Group, because I have 5 grandchildren. Therefore, my board, the new board of directors
Right.
of the consulting company, the JC Group, is comprised of my grandchildren.
Okay.
And so, for the next 5 or years or so, until they get of age where they could do some things,
Right.
it will be dormant, and I will be training them
Okay.
in certain areas.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what that's about. So we'll share all of that on this platform with you guys, and in the JC Group piece, we'll be able to talk about some other business and entrepreneurial stuff,
Okay.
Coming up. Okay.
which is important
Definitely.
because, in fact, we can't do politics without understanding business and economics and the role, that economics plays in politics.
Right.
Because that's why our 2 civil rights movements failed, because we were not in a position to finance our politics. So we needed Democrats or Republicans
Yes.
to finance our freedom. And if it's not in conjunction with how they see our freedom,
Money get taken.
where's it going?
Back in their pocket.
So unless we understand that we got to make stuff, we are not going to be able to improve our circumstance in any significant way.
Yes,
So
sir.
you guys got me started, and we're gonna finish too.
All right. Our guest tonight is author Gary James. His book is Black Politics 2.0, and this is the It's Your Perspective talk show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until. Our website is streaming live from the vi.com. He will be back on June 4th, and then 2 weeks after that, he'll be back again for his final segment. He's going to take a break, and then he'll be back maybe in another couple months after that to do another dissertation, as he says. So we definitely want to thank you, Gary, for coming out, spending time with us. He was our first guest on the show back in April of 2014, and he continues to come here and spend an hour every couple of weeks with us to enlighten us on a lot of things, you know. So, Superman, you got any final words, man?
Gary, again, thank you very much. Continue doing what you're doing. Appreciate it. Love your work. Rastafari lives. One perfect love.
Yeah, and we like to say one perfect love is our praise and his blessings, man. When you put it all together, you get one perfect love. So on that note, we'll be back on Tuesday.
And to people, too, this is Memorial Day weekend.
That's right, that's right.
Drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. Please don't drink and drive. Click it, or you're going to get ticket. So buckle up, and be safe. You know,
Be
whatever
safe,
you could do, have fun, but just be safe.
This weekend or next weekend?
This weekend, Monday. Monday is Memorial Day.
Monday, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So everybody be safe. One love. Jagade. Rastafari lives.
Yeah, so we're just going to leave it at that. We will see you next week, Tuesday. We're out. Peace.
It's your girl Tit. Show them fellas how we drop it like this. Ladies, you know we put it down like this.
When you walk right up in the club, these guys looking at you like they know what you are. They be hollering at you, looking all like a thug. Baby, I don't need this, not this combo.
You be acting so down, watching you over there, looking so sexy. Baby, I'm the one to be. Hit me in your life, you won't be lonely.
Ooh, let me tell you, I don't like your style. Coming all over me, and you look so high. Please don't let me call another guy. Put you down in the ground and let you die.